In 2025, Walmart, the retail giant that has long been synonymous with affordable prices, dropped a bombshell that reverberated through the economy. Prices were about to surge, and the reason? A wave of tariffs imposed by the Trump administration that would alter the landscape of shopping for millions of Americans. But this wasn't just about a spike in the cost of avocados or electronics. It was a much deeper story. It was a story about the collapse of the American low-price leader, a global supply chain on the brink, the rise of automation, and the political storm unleashed from the Oval Office. This wasn't just about a few products going up in price. It was about the future, American jobs, consumer spending, and the shifting tides of global economic power. The world was on the edge, and what Walmart was about to do would change everything. On May 15, 2025, CEO Doug McMillon took to the stage with a somber message. Walmart's days as America's low-price leader were over. The tariffs were too much. The price hikes were coming, and they would hit hard. The U.S. government's new import duties had ballooned to a staggering 145% on Chinese products before settling at 30%, and Walmart's razor-thin margins were finally buckling under the weight. CFO John David Rainey confirmed it. By June, prices would climb, and by July, they would climb even higher, right in time for the back-to-school shopping season. It wasn't just the exotic or luxury items feeling the sting. It was the everyday staples. Bananas, baby gear, toys, electronics, all of it. Even a simple Barbie doll shot up from $10.49 to $14.99 in the span of a week. In the midst of the price surge, President Trump made it clear, Walmart should eat the tariffs. But anyone who's managed a budget, let alone run a business, knows that's impossible. Tariffs are taxes, and when a titan like Walmart admits it can't handle the burden, the entire retail sector starts to feel the tremors. The American consumer was about to feel the pain, and Walmart's struggles signaled a much larger crisis brewing beneath the surface. The price hikes were only the beginning. Behind the scenes, while Americans were distracted by the shock of rising prices, Walmart was making a calculated move, re-engineering its entire global supply chain. The company began shifting its sourcing away from the U.S. and ramping up its investments in suppliers from countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It was a precision strike designed to insulate Walmart from the increasing costs of doing business in the U.S. The company's Grow With Us initiative, once a proud pledge to support American manufacturing, was quietly replaced with a new, far more global logistics strategy. To further dodge the weight of tariffs, even the packaging was redesigned, with aluminum swapped for fiberglass to skirt import duties. Walmart's rollout of robotics and AI in stores seemed like the company was pushing forward into the future. But the truth was darker. This wasn't about innovation, it was about survival. Automation was a direct response to rising labor costs and the shrinking profit margins caused by tariffs. Critics decried Walmart's embrace of technology as a betrayal of its Americana roots, accusing the company of abandoning the workforce and abandoning the very principles that had made it a household name. But the executives? They didn't care about the image. They cared about keeping the company afloat. In a world where American manufacturing had become too expensive, even a giant like Walmart had to adapt or perish. The move didn't go unnoticed in Washington. Walmart's actions were sending shockwaves through the political landscape. The reconfiguration of one of the country's largest employers sparked debates about the future of American manufacturing, the fairness of tariffs, and the role of automation in the economy. The company had gone global to survive, and that sent a powerful message. If even Walmart couldn't make it in America without dramatically changing the way it did business, then what did that mean for the rest of the country? Washington couldn't ignore the fallout. The political storm was just beginning. The story was far from over. As Walmart redefined its future, the consequences for the economy and the American worker were becoming clearer. The price hikes were just a glimpse of the chaos to come. The global pivot was a glimpse into the future of retail, and what it might mean for jobs, consumer behavior, and the stability of American industry itself. Buckle up. Walmart's evolution isn't just changing the way we shop, it's reshaping the very fabric of the American economy. And the ride is far from over. The moment the news broke that Walmart was making a major shift toward overseas sourcing, President Trump's response was immediate and explosive. Behind the closed doors of the White House, a firestorm of fury erupted. Trump felt betrayed by one of America's most iconic companies. For him, it was a gut punch to the very heart of his economic agenda. Reports started to circulate that the president was considering pulling government contracts, while he unleashed his anger on social media, posting a blunt message on Truth Social, demanding that Walmart eat the tariffs and keep prices low. The message was clear. American companies had a duty to absorb the cost, no matter the financial toll. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick quickly echoed the president's anger, pushing the idea that companies should bear the brunt of the tariffs themselves. But economists had a different view. They pointed out that tariffs, by their very nature, are taxes on imports, and that someone always pays the price. It could be the company, it could be the consumer, or more likely both. Walmart, however, was steadfast. CEO Doug McMillon insisted that the company was committed to U.S. jobs, even as it struggled with razor-thin margins in an increasingly complex retail environment. But the public relations damage was already done. Trump's supporters, once loyal to the retail giant, began turning on Walmart. Despite the company's deep roots in American communities, it was now being labeled unpatriotic. But Walmart wasn't just another company. It was a massive, nationwide institution, a vital anchor in the fabric of American retail. If even Walmart was starting to shift its focus away from the domestic economy, it wasn't just a business decision. It was a powerful signal that the whole strategy behind Trump's tariffs was faltering. And the reality of this was laid bare in Walmart's latest financial disclosures. Walmart's first quarter earnings report told a story of a company fighting to stay afloat. Revenue soared to an impressive $165.61 billion, fueled largely by its grocery and e-commerce sectors. But profits? They took a hit. Walmart may have outperformed analysts' expectations, but that was largely thanks to aggressive cost-cutting measures and preemptively stockpiling inventory, not because of real retail strength. Both Doug McMillon and CFO John David Rainey were candid about the situation. The tariffs were severely undermining their profitability. A car seat that once cost $350 now carried a price tag of more than $450. And that wasn't the only item facing steep price hikes. Strollers, electronics, seasonal goods, all were set to increase in cost. Walmart's troubles were not an isolated incident. Companies like Mattel and Procter & Gamble were also raising prices due to the tariffs. But Walmart's massive scale, 3,600 stores and 150 million shoppers each week, meant that its financial moves had an outsized impact on the entire economy. At first, investors hesitated, unsure how to respond to the retail giant's situation. But soon it became clear that Walmart's survival strategy was hinging on automation, overseas sourcing, and AI. They were fighting to keep profits from sinking further, but the damage to Main Street was already substantial. Meanwhile, consumer confidence took a major hit. 75% of Americans were blaming the tariffs for the rising prices. Walmart's shift? It wasn't about abandoning its roots. It was about survival in a market where tariffs had made the cost of doing business increasingly unsustainable. And this wasn't just about retail anymore. The ripples were spreading deep into American communities. When Walmart adjusts its strategy, it sends shockwaves through small-town America. This isn't about just higher prices or the shiny new technology they're investing in. It's about livelihoods. Jobs are being slashed. Shifts are being reduced. People are losing the stability that Walmart, as the largest employer in many of these towns, used to provide. Distribution hubs are shrinking, local suppliers are being cut loose, and regional truckers are seeing fewer loads. In countless rural areas, these changes are already being felt, and it's the local communities that are left to bear the brunt. The consequences stretch far beyond just the paycheck. In places where Walmart is a cornerstone employer, the economic web extends to housing markets, school budgets, and healthcare systems. And when the company shifts its sourcing overseas, it leaves small manufacturers who once thrived on Walmart contracts teetering on the brink of collapse. Yes, Walmart is investing in next-gen fulfillment centers and AI-powered stores, but those sleek, automated operations require far fewer workers than the traditional models they replace. This leaves rural locations, often dependent on those jobs, out in the cold. Lawmakers are beginning to express concern, but Trump? He's doubling down. He's threatening to impose more tariffs on companies that offshore their work. Economists are raising alarms, warning that these new policies could deepen inflation and halt any potential recovery. For ordinary working Americans, the question is growing clearer by the day. Pay more or lose more? With families stuck in the middle, the future has never seemed more uncertain. Walmart's actions may be emblematic of a larger, more troubling shift in the economy. The promises of an economic revival driven by tariffs are fast unraveling. So is Walmart abandoning America? Not physically. The stores are still there, but their strategy has fundamentally changed. The promises of bringing back American manufacturing have largely fallen apart. Instead, companies like Walmart are leaning heavily on automation, offshore sourcing, and aggressive cost-cutting measures. Walmart, once the symbol of American retail strength, has shown that survival now means choosing numbers over national loyalty. This pivot isn't just about Walmart. It's a stark warning about the future of Main Street. If the largest and most iconic retailer in the nation is seeking refuge overseas, what's to stop other companies from following suit? The question now is in our hands. This isn't just a corporate decision anymore. It's a wake-up call about what's happening to the American economy. What's your take on Walmart's shift? Is it a necessary business move, or is it a betrayal of the American worker? Should companies be required to absorb the cost of tariffs, or is that unrealistic? What do you think the long-term cost of automation will be for small towns and local economies? As jobs are lost and communities destabilize, where does that leave the future of places like Walmart's hometown? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're reading, and your voice shapes this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the economic forces shaping the nation. See you in the next one.